I'm thinking about like that 2020 COVID lockdown moment. I'm fascinated with it, especially in terms of like the stories to tell from that moment from like practicing artists, like, because there's stories of like triumph and tribulation, I think, but also from the perspective of art educators but also from the perspective of art students. Like, especially when you're working towards something as rigorous as like a thesis exhibition, you're arting so hard. And then all of a sudden, like that, you are creatively and academically just flapping in the wind for 8 weeks, just to like, just for like the sort of like, I don't know, just to kind of finish up whatever that means. Was there any takeaways that seemed useful that you see now in 2024, this moment that we're in now? Or was it all just like, no, this just was just a terrible moment and I'm so happy to move on from it?
At the time, in the moment, yeah, I was like kind of annoyed, to put it simply, that, we didn't have a thesis show, that's what you're looking towards. Yeah. But I actually found it really helpful after a few weeks, because then that really gave me the opportunity through my thesis writing and like just thinking about my work in general. It gave me that time to really think about what my work was about, more in depth, and understand myself better as a person, as an artist. This here is David Schnuckel. David was one of my mentors at Rochester Institute of Technology whenever I was going to grad school. He was the first person who asked me and challenged me as to why I was using glass as a creative material. Just the simple question, well, why glass? And the fact that I couldn't really give an answer sort of spoke volumes on my end. Just seeing the way that he worked with students and within his own practice, it really made me think about, yeah, of course, why I was choosing to work with glass as a material, but what was the significance other than the material exists as something that is transparent, opaque, all the properties of glass. It really made me realize what the root of my practice was. I was actually able to speak with David about the realities of what it means to be an artist, specifically a glass artist, whenever it comes to cost, whenever it comes to analyzing what it means, what you really have to do to try to make it in this field, and acknowledging the fact that it's not going to be all butterflies and rainbows as much as you would like it to be.
When I was in the presence of Michael Rogers and Robin Cass, who were my faculty mentors, one of the things that I remember coming up was the fact that there was a really important sort of indication that graduation was one thing, the MFA exhibition was one thing, the paper was one thing, but the idea of like making use of that by sort of finding your place within the world and seen as a recognizable member of that field that you want to be a part of and actually making noticeable, meaningful contributions to it, then if you can do that for 4 or 5 years after that, then I remember them saying that that's when we see you no longer as a previous student, but as a peer, as a colleague. So I guess I want to say, well done on kind of making really good use of not only that time at RIT, but to moderate really meaningful, important panel discussions, to like present lectures and talks about your work beyond, a sort of campus or assignment prompted sort of kind of moments. Like, that's a big deal. This is a really kind of watershed moment for me. It's like a proud papa moment where it's like, oh my God, my kid's not a kid. They're a full-fledged adult and they're doing things and they're doing important things.
I'm glad that you sort of touched on like the whole panel and lecture thing outside of what it means to be a student. Within grad school, like those presentations, they were assignments, but that is something that really shaped me. Being able to talk more cohesively about my practice, yes, but it also made me realize that I'm now able to communicate a lot better, not just from, me individually, person to person. I mean, as a teacher, I have to do that all the time now, but I was able to find my confidence as an artist. And I think you're someone who made me realize that I didn't have to be quiet. I didn't always have to sit in the back, and I was able to actually find my voice, not just as an artist, but as a person. you probably didn't know that, but you do now. So I just want to thank you for that.
Oh, that's really lovely. What you are making me think of is something that I think we have in common. We're both, I'm going to make a general assumption. We're both makers who write and maybe makers who love writing, or at least see it as useful at the very least.
Yeah, I will say I loved writing my thesis. I know that makes me kind of weird, but I love writing in general.
That is, you are a weirdo, but in all the right ways. And I say that as someone who is now like teaching a thesis paper writing course. The face-to-face thing, the in-person thing, it's hard. It's a difficult sort of thing for me to do, especially when I'm really wanting to work out certain ideas or observations that may or may not kind of land well or be done well. So there's a safety net aspect of it for me. I don't know if you feel the same way.
Oh, I definitely do. Sometimes I think of it as the letter that you'll never send.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes it turns into an article and you're like, oh, well, I'm going to send this to the world. So in fact, everyone will see that. Yeah. But within that, I think it is a safety net for me for sure. And it is a way for me to vocalize the things, like just sterilize things down within my practice.
The things you were doing extracurricularly, like writing articles for international publications like Gas News during one's graduate study, is not common.
Something that I was maybe thinking about subconsciously was, because it was during COVID, like, yes, I loved writing, but how do you still have a creative outlet when your practice is so much surrounded by this concept of like, I'm a kiln caster, I need access to a kiln, I need a cold shop, I need all this stuff. Yeah. And I think that was a creative outlet for me. It made me just feel better. All
of your like conceptual convictions that are prompting your personal work, you're finding ways in which that has relevance within a broader context. I like the word you use, global. Like, these aren't just personal concerns. These are like human-centered concerns.
I've always been interested in writing, but if things didn't happen the way that they did with COVID, I can't 100% say that I would be a writer, because it seemed that that was my main outlet for thinking of my work in a more refined way, and also beginning to think about things on a more global level. I found myself writing in general, again, like just literal letters that I like will never share with anybody, but letters that I would write talking to myself, or maybe like talking to another person. And then I would go in and highlight language that really stuck out to me. And I found the root within my practice within those letters. So it was something that was really fruitful for me, and still is.
I think one of the things that was really useful for me was I began to realize that perhaps an artist isn't necessarily, or isn't at all, defined by what they can do, but how they can adapt. So maybe that might indicate the difference between people who talk about being an artist and the people that actually are able to perform like one.
I think there's something really valuable in being able to look at a previous mentor, as weird as it to say from my perspective, as a peer now. Mm. I'm never going to fully get over that. Mm. But thank you for that. And again, thank you for joining me, and thank you for always being there as my mentor, and for always being open to having me like come to you if I need help, whatever that's for.
Yeah, it's been a real privilege. I'm so happy to spend time with you in this way. And I'm really proud of all the things that you've done. And I know that I'll be continuing to root you on as you move forward and continue to change the game in the way that you are. Congratulations in advance.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for checking out this GEEX Shorts episode. This is just one of 10 chapters featuring the speaker's artwork, artistic practice, and direct conversations with the community. The full-length video, only publicly available for a limited time, can be found in the GEEX Talks subscriber archive, where you can also discover hours of content on even more contemporary glass artists and researchers. As a BIPOC and artist-led organization, GEEX redefines the culture of contemporary glass by canonizing artists and thinkers who have been historically marginalized in the field. If you'd like to support this effort, subscribe to GEEX and gain access to exclusive content. For more info, visit geeks.glass/support. Thanks to this episode's sponsors, listed on screen and in the video description below.